Welcome to Collaboration Conversations. I'm your host, Regina Partain, CEO of Bridgeport Strategy. I am delighted to have another guest co-host with me today and the panelists that she has brought. So let me introduce you to our co-host today. Our co-host today is Maureen Herrera, and Maureen is a certified grief recovery specialist and a grief coach, which really speaks to my heart. As anybody who knows me knows, I have been very involved in the grief world, and that's it's definitely an issue close to my heart. So, Maureen, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Regina.
It's wonderful to have you. Maureen, would you kick us off by sharing a bit about your journey, who you serve, and why that's important to you?
Okay, sure. So many years ago, I was married and I had two children and had, the typical family lifestyle. And my husband and two sons went out to a Super Bowl party and they were killed by a drunk driver. So I dove into therapy for a really, really, really long time. And I'm not bashing therapy. It just didn't happen for me. Nothing really helped. I just got really good at my story and I just kept saying it over and over again. And I was basically going into my car and just screaming after a session because I was so frustrated. So it wasn't until I found the grief recovery program that I take it myself and say, this is exactly what I've been looking for. So I teach this program to women mostly who want to basically move forward in life and rebuild. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
And there's a huge need for that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
a huge need, and my condolences on the loss of your husband and your sons.
Thank you.
Um, there's a lot we could talk about in that realm, but we'll move on to some other things. So,
Yes.
Maureen, would you introduce our panelists for today and have them share a bit about their journey, who they serve, and why?
Sure. Why don't we start with Matthew? Matthew, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you serve.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to be here. Thank you all for having me. My name is Matthew Koppelman. I'm a financial planner. I have an office in Bethesda, Maryland, but I have clients across the United States. The majority of my practice is focused on helping women that are either close to or already in retirement with their finances. A big part of that is education. That's really the foundation of my practice, is bringing everybody up to speed so we can have more collaborative conversations rather than just one-way discussions of, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it because I said so. It's more of, hey, let me tell you about this strategy, and then we'll make a decision on whether or not it's a good fit for you. How I ended up with that, I actually, I spent a lot of time in the luxury hotel space for a little over a decade. And then when COVID hit, I was looking for a new career. I saw some of the decisions that my parents made leading up to their retirement. They had done everything right. They had gone to the right school, they got the right job, they saved. But when it came time to retirement and putting together different withdrawal strategies, that was something that they had never been educated on. And I saw the impact of that. And then when you combine that with a couple of cancer diagnosis, their retirement wasn't what it should have been and what it could have been. So I decided to make that the focus of my practice and try my best to make sure that doesn't happen to other people as long as it's preventable.
Right.
That's amazing.
That's a great story. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
So let's go to Matilda. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I have a career as a teacher of English, but then I was very curious about ways to helping my students. And then it became part of my life, neurolinguistic programming, brain gym, and educational kinesiology. So then I became a coach, team coach, and life coach. And not long ago, I developed a program for women as transformational coach, particularly because of my experience of being a mom and having chosen, because I chose to study, to keep studying. So it was like juggling a lot of balls in the air. How do I manage this? So putting together all the tools that I have, I developed a program for women who really badly need this me time. They have no way of finding this famous me time for themselves, which makes a big difference. But well, apart from that, as I say, I work as a coach and I train people whenever I have the opportunity on the tools that Brain Gym offers that helps us all, at the moment of facing even a thing like this, a live event like this one, for example, and how to be in your best self, right? Your best version of yourself.
Right.
Before we go on, I just have to say it's a delight to meet another Brain Gym person. I don't run into many. I studied educational kinesiology years ago,
Yeah.
to this day in my life. So it's
Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Thank
Let's move
you.
on to Marla.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marla Dirac, and my journey kind of started, and my educational career path started by I am a mother of a child that has a traumatic brain injury, and she currently lives with me, so I'm a caregiver as well. So that gave me the impotence to go back to school, and I got my doctorate from the University of Arizona in stress, health, and behavior change. And I worked and did clinical trials for a while at the university, but then the defense industry wanted my talent. So I went there for a while and was a consultant and coach for many managers, directors, and executives. And when I retired, I moved to a small little town here in Arizona, and I needed to do something different because there's not a whole lot of industry here. So I wanted to morph it into what I was currently doing in the defense industry. And that was really helping people change what they were currently doing to be successful and to be a better leader. Well, how could I do that in a small community? Most of the population here where I live is about over 40% retired, like myself. So I decided to take and morph it into being both a life coach and a health coach. So I'm currently kind of a health coach, helping people really improve their health, especially their metabolic health, because we have so much type 2 diabetes here. We have a lot of issues with insulin resistance and things like that. So that's what really kind of got me to where I am today. And I really like the fact, Maureen, that you brought us all here, because collaboration is the key.
Yes, it's very important. I agree.
It is indeed. Now I have a question. Do all of you know each other and collaborate together currently? Or
No.
this is a new meeting for some of you?
Matthew and I are going to be collaborating together.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know Maureen and Matilda and Marla. We just met, and it's nice to meet you.
Excellent.
Nice to meet
Nice to
you.
meet all of you. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's take it from that perspective then, because this group has not collaborated previously. What would that look like if the four of you were to collaborate? You're serving, there's some definite crossovers in your markets, right? In terms of who you serve, definitely crossovers there. So what could a collaboration look like amongst the four of you?
Well, I think especially for Matthew, I'm so glad to see him, because I currently collaborate with another financial planner here. She's a woman who specifically is focusing on helping women understand financial matters, because historically, usually it's been a man's field, and there's more and more women going into it. And so she and I, it's interesting how we can usually, because there's a huge retirement population up here, how we have a lot to collaborate on.
Yeah.
I love the idea of when I'm meeting with a client, I really stress the idea of, hey, we're putting together a team. It's not just you and I. And over the past couple of years, I've been toying with the idea of, okay, what would it look like if that team expanded outside of just financial matters, where like right now it's common for people in my industry to collaborate with an estate attorney or a CPA or something like that, but bringing in, okay, a health coach or a grief counselor or whatever, a leadership coach, whatever that may look like, and turn it more into a one-stop shop. I think there's a lot of value that could be added,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, I believe I believe that aside from all that you mentioned, all those professions that you mentioned that are really important, because, for example, personally, I don't like figures, I don't understand them, and that will be great help for me, you know.
Right.
I always get away from that. But I believe that these situations to all of us present a certain level of stress. And having the tools to handle the stress, the fears that come along with, oh, should I put my money here or there? What should I do? At the moment of taking a decision, there are certain tools that prove to be really effective, like this.
Yes.
Just certain movements, and Regina knows what I'm talking about. Certain movements that you can do to be, as I said before, like we call it integrated, like have both your hemispheres of your brain working as a team and
Yes.
helping you taking the right decisions. And that's wonderful, because once you learn those tools, they're yours
Right. Exactly.
to use them at the moment you need, right?
Yes.
And it's really essential when a woman is now she finds herself as a widow and she's grieving, and all of a sudden now she is the head of the household and she has to manage the finances. And maybe she dabbled in it a little bit, maybe she didn't, right? And all of a sudden now she's responsible and she needs somebody who is going to educate her and explain everything, so that she can understand, because she's also dealing with brain fog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Her brain's not even working, you know?
Yep.
So it's important to have somebody in her corner to say, this, we're going to just explain everything.
Yeah. Somebody to hold their hand.
And reduce that stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold their hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, both of those are key ingredients in reducing that stress. What Matilda has is really powerful in terms of reducing that stress, but also that hand holding and walking you through it. I mean,
Right.
We don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
And if if our mate has been handling all of that, now suddenly thrust into something that terrifies us frequently.
Yeah.
And it's all interrelated, because if we come to Marla's field, right? When we are under stress, well, sugar peaks, right? And that's only one thing. There are lots of things involving health that we need to learn, right? Also.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just your overall health in general, especially during the grief process, can be one that declines rapidly and quickly. And so having a team of people that work, like you say, Matthew, on the finances and things that are going on in their life, and then the things with their health in combination with somebody who supports the grief process, that's just optimal. And presentation on it alone is optimal.
Right.
The opportunity for the four of you to work together with this market is incredible.
Yeah.
Anybody have any further thoughts on that part?
Sounds like a win-win to me.
It sounds like a win-win to me as well. Okay, we're done.
And to the client, yeah.
We've solved the problem.
Well, I guess that with if we need to look at the bright side, what COVID helped us was to start connecting with others and using the technology for connecting with others, being able to see our faces. And okay, you won't be able to, because of distance, give a hug to somebody, but now we learn how to do it, to look at somebody's eyes and offer support, and even if it is silence, a second of silence, right? We have learned, and we are doing it via these platforms like this one, right? So
Right.
that's something that counts, because sometimes distance is an issue, but luckily that's when technology helps us,
Right.
right?
So this session is going a little differently than any I've done on this show in the past 2+ years, but I'm really liking it. So what I'd like to do is have you guys kind of be a little guinea pig for me here in a way, and talk about how we've talked about how collaboration, you can all collaborate for sure. What would be the steps? Because one of the questions I ask people a lot of times is, how would you tell people to start collaborating with others if they've never done that? What would be the steps if the four of you were going to create a program together, if you were going to work together in collaboration? How would you proceed? What do you think? I mean, and we're just spitballing here, folks. Obviously we haven't discussed this previously. This is just, we're just telling you as it comes. So what do you think you would do for the four of you to come together to collaborate to serve your markets?
Well, right off the bat for myself, I think it would have to be like a mind-body connection, because what I do is very emotional, but people don't really take a good look at the physical aspect that's happening to somebody when they're grieving. So that's what I'm talking about. The body needs to be addressed.
Right.
Are they eating properly? Are they getting enough sleep? Are they exercising, at least just going for a walk? Because their challenge really is getting out of bed in the morning and brushing their teeth, right? Yeah. So simple little things like that, like, did you stretch today or go for a walk? Or, what do you do? What does your self-care look like, right? Because that's another thing that sort of goes out the window when we're really deep in grief, because we don't really care.
Right.
And we need to take a good look at ourselves and say, I need to do some things for myself today, right? Make my bed, little things, right?
Right.
I believe that, Regina, you also meant how will we start as a group,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So one thing that I think is important is to do some kind of a brainstorming. And once the person approaches us, see what's the first thing to do. What Maureen says is vital, because sometimes you don't even think about getting dressed, and you can be in your pajamas for a week, for example, right?
Yeah.
So it depends, because that person can come to us or to Matthew or to any of us with some financial issue, and that's when we know, no, the first person you need to contact is Matthew, right? I think that I learned this from a very old friend who unfortunately died some years ago, just when I moved to the US. And she would have one of these, which I love, by the way. I know that we all use a Google Calendar, whatever, but this is, having an agenda, like we say in Spanish, is important. Well, hers was this fat, with lots of papers, Post-it, whatever not. So the person that would get to her, she was specialized in a program for losing weight and all that, but it was much more than that. So whoever approached her and had an issue, she would open it and say, you need to contact so-and-so, boom, boom, take it down, da, da, da. And she made the connection. So that's why I love this opportunity that we're having today, because we all have different areas from which to start. And it's good to have, in this case, the four of us. So what is the first thing for this person to address? And then how can we then come to support what this first one of us started working on?
Yeah.
You raise a good point, Matilda, where you say, where the person is at, because I think that's pivotal to which person steps in first. I was in the process of many years ago helping my brother. He was in a very bad situation. He was basically practically homeless. So in that situation, it'd be a Matthew because his finances he had none. And so how are we going to get him finances, food, and shelter?
Mm,
So
yeah.
those were pivotal. And then we had to address his health because his health was a mess. And then we had to do the other things beyond that and get him counseling and do that. So I think it depends. It's specific to the individual as to where this group and why it would be so great to collaborate, because then you have all these resources you can pull on in an instant. We spent months trying to find things to get resolved.
Yeah.
I work with a couple of gentlemen. One is in the finance industry and one is in mergers and acquisitions. And so the finance guy can send deals to us where we can help that company get ready for funding, that kind of a thing, or get ready to sell their company. So the mergers and acquisitions fellow and I are creating a combined assessment. So whoever speaks to that person first, they're going to put them through that assessment, which is going to let us know, do they need to start over in mergers and acquisitions, or do they need to start with me to get their business in shape, to do whatever they're wanting to do. So the four of you could actually maybe create some kind of an assessment that would let you know who you need to refer to and when within that process. What do you think?
The answers to this assessment, I'm just thinking from the point of view of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Program, the way you speak to yourself, the words that you use will give you loads of information. For example, if Matthew has to address somebody who is all the time saying, listen to me, listen. So that person is mainly auditory.
Right.
So, and using it to his advantage to reach the person faster, right? I'm also a storyteller, so sometimes a brief micro story that you may create for that person reaches the subconscious mind much faster than a whole lecture. So all these elements can be used at the moment of designing something like you're describing, Regina.
And I think part of this would be in terms of logistically how it would work. We would want to understand exactly how every person works with their clients. What does that process look like? Because I can tell you there's a million different, if I'm referring someone to, I could go back to like an estate attorney or a CPA. They're not all the same. And so if I just had one CPA that I sent every client to, some people are going to have a great relationship, others may not. And that comes from meeting with them and sitting, whether it's lunch or Zoom or something. Okay, tell me a little bit about what your practice or what your client relationship looks like. How does the onboarding process work? How long are you working with these people? And really getting an understanding of how that works. And then also, most importantly, how do you prefer to be introduced to people? Do you want me on a Zoom with you, or do you want me just to introduce you via email and then you can pick it up from there? And that usually makes for the smoothest types of collaborations. And then ideally you're communicating throughout that way people aren't operating in a silo and saying, okay, I've done this for Joe Smith and this person over here has done something completely different, but you're supposed to be on the same team. You want to be collaborating and communicating throughout the whole process. Could
you also, I think I completely agree with what you said, Matthew, with what everyone has said so far. But could you also take a look then at the same time at the ideal clients for each of you, and where are the intersections? Where does Matthew's client intersect with Maureen's and Matilda's and Marla's?
That's a good point.
And then you have the opportunity to not only do referrals, but what about events? Remarketing to that segment of your audience that could use the services or be a potential client or user of those services, and then bringing them all together and looking for those opportunities to cross-pollinate.
You know, I agree with what you're saying, Regina, in the fact that a lot of people, and Maureen could probably attest to this, that they don't like to talk about death. They don't like to think that there's going to eventually be an exit. They wait too long to get their financial planner,
Yep.
and you know, and so I think it's crucial at what point is the population to begin? Is it 30 and above? Is it 40 and above? Who is it? Because the message can go to anyone, but when is it best received? I guess, yeah. So looking at what population to target.
That's a really good point. And we know that there's a huge percentage of our population that are the baby boomers who are getting ready to exit their businesses. You know, how does that play into what you can offer?
Right.
Yeah.
Lots to think about, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I get a lot of those questions all the time about, you know, when should I start investing, or people who do not understand even the benefits of a life coach or a health coach or a grief person. They don't even know what they are, really. And I have that question a lot, like, well, what's a health coach do? You know, and they'd rather see a coach sometimes than a psychologist, because there's some less fear, not to say psychologists are not where people go, but sometimes they don't want to go there, and because they just feel it's a problem, not something deeper.
Yeah.
Also, people in general feel that until something serious happens, you don't need that. Instead of preventing, from your point of view of medicine, for example, as a doctor, you know that prevention is vital. And the same happens if you think about finances. You don't need to be touching button to, you need to be ready. So avoid that kind of situations, right?
Yeah.
And in the case of grief, also accept that, well, you know, things happen and we lose our loved ones, and what? And how can I get out of that situation and continue with what I'm doing, or finding a purpose, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. What is your purpose after losing somebody you love deeply, right?
And who am I outside of that relationship?
Exactly. Who am I? You know, you're starting over. I mean, I was a wife and a mother. But that was no longer needed, right? I had to reinvent who I was, to create myself.
Yeah.
And it's a long journey. It's not something. It's not like, you know this as well as I do, Regina, because you've had loss as well. So there's not a line in the sand where you just jump over it, you know, and go, okay, yay, I'm done. You know, we end up carrying this grief. We end up growing around it.
Yeah. And sometimes it jumps up and smacks you right in the face.
It does. It does. Well, all of a sudden you're like, you know,
years later.
Yeah, you're having a good day. You're driving home, and all of a sudden, you know, a song comes on the radio, you know, and now you're like ugly crying in the car, you know.
That's true. Yeah. There are singers that you don't listen anymore. When you care for a person and you take care of a person with Alzheimer, for example, or dementia, and you're all the time trying to, and then you lose the person. I lost my mom, and then I would sing her a song by Enya and forget it. Maybe I didn't mean to, but I don't listen to that anymore. So there are a lot of things that, and then what do you do with the time that now you have? Now you have free time. You don't have to rush from one place to the other, trying to get to see her. And you're like, and now what? And you need to take care of yourself. Nobody will do it for you. So.
Right. Like you just said, now it's time for you to take care of you. And then you might still feel a little guilty that you have a little free time now when you should be taking care of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's kind of the opposite effect when you have a child you care for, right? It's I don't have as much free time, and making time to have free time, because obviously that's important to my health, and it certainly impacted my finances. I had to figure out how to manage that. and how to make the best of it, because the cost of care, and I've talked about this in the community, cost of care is just getting unreachable for most of us.
Mhm.
You know, you're talking $33 to $35 an hour for in-home care, and
Right.
some of the care facilities are $5,000, $6,000 and more.
Right.
And so I definitely needed a Matthew when I was going through that, and I used, you know, both of you as well. It was because it is a loss. You've lost
Mhm.
the function of a normal child.
Right.
So,
So
Yeah.
to your
it all
question,
plays into it.
it
Yeah.
does. And to your question, Marla, about when is the right time for that audience, one of, to present that, one of those right times, I think for this combination of the four of you, I think there are several, but one of them could be, to those people who've had a loss, whether that's your situation, Marla, where you're caring for somebody with an
Right.
injury, Maureen's situation where she's lost, family members, but dealing with loss, because we, those of us who experience that, we know what that brain fog is like, and
Mhm.
how hard that is to get through. And so anything that we can do to help them through that journey is extremely valuable.
Matthew, what have you experienced? Where do you see clients come to you at what point in time?
Well, and I work with businesses. So yes, there's an element of me that's involved in the grief world. My husband passed away this year, will be his 10th angelversary, as we call it.
Mhm.
And so where was I going? This is live, folks.
Yeah, what point in time? Like even Matthew, what point in time do people come to you?
Yeah.
It ranges. I'd say the interest in a financial planner when someone is in their early 30s is slim to none.
Oh, really?
Because it's very hard. I think the hardest part of my job is getting people to relate to their future selves, because they
Right.
just consider
Mhm.
that person a complete stranger.
Yeah.
So I'm in my late 30s. Full disclosure, I didn't even start taking a lot of this seriously until my early 30s. And I meet with some people that have been saving since their 20s. I'd say most people reach out to me when they're starting to get into their mid 50s. And it starts to become real
Wow.
of, okay, this could potentially happen. I'm actually going to retire. This is not some far off distant event. It's going to happen at some point, and it's going to happen sometime soon. And that's really when and my partner and I can do our best work, because we have a little bit of, I like to say, we have a little bit of runway left.
Yeah.
So if we need to make adjustments, we can go in and make adjustments, and we can reap the benefits of that over the next 10 years or so.
Mhm.
The most difficult cases that we're on are people that maybe have waited until a year before, 6 months before, to
Wow.
reach out. And they have a lot of questions, and they're all very valid questions, but
Right.
it's like trying to turn the Titanic on a dime. It's okay, we have 12 months left, and there's a lot of work to do.
Mm.
We can still do good work, but it's a little bit more difficult. But I'd say mid 50s is usually the sweet spot.
Mhm.
Matthew, we run into that same problem with coaching in businesses when we start talking exit strategy. The common response is,
Sure.
well, I don't ever plan to sell my business. I don't ever plan to leave it.
Right.
So what I have resorted to in recent times is, what is the legacy you plan to leave for your family? If something happens to you tomorrow, heaven forbid you get hit by a bus, what's the legacy you've left for your family? And because we have to wake up.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have to wake up, or we're in those positions that you're describing, Matthew.
Mhm.
The people that reach out earlier than that are usually, I'd say, people like myself that have firsthand experience of like witnessing what can happen
Right.
maybe if you don't do the planning. And I've seen a lot of that, especially in the long-term care space, where everybody has a story, whether it's an immediate family member or an extended family member, of, oh my gosh, do you remember Aunt so-and-so, her long-term care in the nursing home costs X amount of dollars a month. Or my father had to live in the house with us, or whatever the story is. Everybody can relate to that. So
Right.
those are usually more proactive cases, just because everyone can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that sometimes puts the motion in place. I know in some of the clients I dealt with when I first came up here, it was people who had passed away, and then their finances, they had no idea what they were. And they were emotionally a mess, and they weren't dealing very well with the loss. And it was really taxing on them. And you could tell that in my own financial planning, probably what you said, Matthew, in my 50s. But that's interesting, because that was the impetus that drove me to the defense industry, because my pension was not as good at the university. So I wanted to build upon that before I retired. And that was why I went and took that job.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that you say that. And I think that's what a lot of people do. I know several of my friends looked at the last kind of 10 years of their life and what were they going to do with that so that they could invest it better.
For sure. I mean, my dad made a decision. The last 10 years of his working career were for a company that specifically had a pension, based on the fact that he looked back and said, okay, I'm not sure that I've saved enough going into this,
Right.
some sort of help. And nowadays pensions are few and far between. So he was able to find a company that did have one, and he made his decision based solely on the fact that they offered a pension. So I think when people get to that retirement red zone, if you want to call it that, that's when
Yeah.
like, okay, let's
That's a good one.
start really planning for this.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to challenge you again here. First of all, let me ask you, does the idea of creating a collaboration where you share audiences appeal to the four of you?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
does.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
So what's the next step you're going to take?
There's a coach.
Get on a Zoom call.
I think your idea of doing an assessment is
Yeah.
a really good idea, to have an assessment form
Where
to
you
be
each
able-
contribute to it?
Yeah, to be able
Yeah.
to say, why don't you answer some of these questions, right? And get a feel for who they would possibly be best partnered with.
Mm-hmm.
And then defining who each of us really is and what is our niche, what's our audience?
Right.
Who are we specifically wanting to attract? And then what are those specific characteristics? Like,
Mhm.
is it this health? Is it this? Is it this? And, because once all of us know exactly what we're doing, then we know when we can start referring people to whom and go from there. But I think there's going to be a few meetings of some sorts that come up first, obviously by Zoom.
yeah.
Since Matthew might be a little further from me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a starting point, getting some meetings together and getting
Right.
a better understanding of who we all are.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'd like to see out of the collaboration.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimate goals for it. Matilda, your thoughts?
Yep. As I said before, I think that the idea would be to meet and do a brainstorming, and then coming up, well, okay, what's first? Maybe assessment, like Maureen said. That will be part of the interview with that person that comes to either Matthew, Marla, Maureen, or myself.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
deciding among us what it is that, like you said, the questions you made, like what would we like to get from this? How would we like to go about this? Also, we need to know our availability, our expectations. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Maureen and I talked
Yeah.
about preferred partners and using that language. Maureen
Oh,
and
I like that.
talked about
Mhm.
that in our
Yeah.
first meeting, and I really like the idea of when one of us is onboarding a new client or a patient, or just saying, hey, these are my preferred partners.
Yeah.
Some
Yep.
of this may be outside of my realm of expertise, but I've met with these people and I've vetted them and I'm comfortable with their services. If you'd like me to make a soft
Mhm.
introduction,
Right.
do that for you. And it really changes how your client is looking at your service going forward.
Exactly.
Of, okay, I
Yeah.
came at Maureen for grief counseling, but she's also referred me to Marla and Matilda, and now I've met Matt. It's really opened the doors to a whole lot of other opportunities. I think that's a
Right.
neat idea of,
Yeah.
like, the
It's kind of a
preferred.
holistic look at their life, isn't it?
Exactly.
Exactly. Also, I mean, there's yes clients that we want, and there's no clients that we don't. I mean, you see when people are ready for it, and you see
Yeah.
when people are like, well, that's why I think that people reaches any of us when they are ready to take the
Right.
leap, or at least they
Mhm.
have an initial intention and they want to
Right.
explore more. But otherwise, what has happened to me is like, then, yeah, they listen to you. Maybe they take, or it has happened to me with Brain Gym a lot, a complimentary session, and they feel wonderful. It's a before and after, definitely. And
Yes.
then, because of different reasons, without judging, of course, they cannot find the time. They don't make the time for themselves, and that's it. And they know that resource exists, but they don't approach it. So that happens too.
Kind of like what we talked about earlier. Where are they at in the process? Because
Right.
I may still get them
Exactly.
as a health coach, or you may still get them as a life coach, or you still may get them as a financial person, but their grief is so extreme that they've got to deal with that first. So that's why I think a collaboration, and I do exactly what you say, Matthew. I get to know people before I refer them to that person and have them be my preferred list, because my
yeah.
reputation is on the line too.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
And it's a little bit like being the doctor, right? You have
Mhm.
to listen, and thoroughly explore before you can prescribe, and that prescription of, I need to send you over to see Matilda or Maureen, or
Mhm.
you need to understand their situation more,
Right. Right.
that it's appropriate.
One of the things we did in the defense industry was a lot of emotional intelligence training, because that really helped them with their teams and with them being able to assess what their teams needed. And I got a master's certification in it, and it has helped me tenfold, because you can quickly assess, that the person is sad, or they're stressed about
Right.
their finances or whatever. So it's been an optimal tool for me.
Awesome.
I bet that comes in handy and outside of the workplace too.
Oh, yes, it does.
You're probably not willing to give away all your secrets on that, huh?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Oh, folks, this has been wonderful. We have come to 10 minutes of the hour, though. We're at the point where we're going to do our wrap-up round, and I'm going to ask Maureen if she'll run a wrap-up round for us. And so, Maureen, what you'll be doing is calling on each person to share their final thoughts on collaboration and their contact information. And while you do that, I will put their contact information into the chat to make sure everybody, I think we need to make sure everybody's gotten their information in here. Matilda, yeah, I see yours. And
Marla's there too.
and Marla's and Maureen's. And okay, I think we got everybody. Yeah. So, Maureen, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Regina. We're going to go backwards this time. I'm going to start with you, Marla.
Oh,
So what did you get out of this? this.
It's interesting you did this, because I do a little of this here already, because one of the things that benefits a small community is, especially, business people who are their own entrepreneurs. And we're all trying to get our name out there. And what we found is when we collaborate, people then start to see us in different settings under different situations.
Right.
So for me, I am always collaborating. Like I said, I collaborate currently with a financial planner. I also collaborate with a woman who does light therapy for different issues. So there's lots of ways, and different things with networking bring out those collaborations. So that's where I got them from. Right. So, for me, that's where it's been beneficial. And, my contact information, you'll see that in a bit. And, but I also have a business called Coach Mark Consulting, and that's also on a Facebook page. So, but thank you, Maureen, for bringing us all together.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Marla. So let's go to you. You still with us, hon?
Who did you say, Maureen?
Mathilde.
Mathilde.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, because you look up and the screen comes and goes,
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's my computer. Yeah. Okay. So it's more or less like what Marla said. Mainly because there are so many coaches, so many of us, and not all of us are for everybody. So you keep referring people to those.
Oops, we lost her. Hopefully she'll get back in. We hope she gets back in. So let's go ahead until she comes back. Maureen,
okay.
Go ahead.
All right, Matthew, tell us what you learned today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Regina and Maureen, for having me on. Marla, it's been nice talking to you as well. I think main takeaway is day to day going through our jobs. I have, well, at least me personally, I'll speak for myself. I have a tendency to think that my job is really unique and it doesn't have a lot of overlap with other industries. That's not the case. I think we're all trying to do the same thing, is that help people through some sort of process, get them from point A to point B. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And a lot of times we're going to end up helping the same type of person, which is what Regina was talking about earlier. So I enjoyed being on the show, and I appreciate you guys having me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Matthew Koppelman on LinkedIn. And then my email is matthew.koppelman, KOPPELMAN @prudential.com. My partner and I run our own practice in Maryland, but we plug into Prudential for their backup.
Oops.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to.
Matilda, just in time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks, Maureen.
Okay, finish.
Welcome back, Mathilde.
That's okay. So, yeah, I believe in collaboration. I think is a way we can use our resources and support others, and also have this feeling of satisfaction and achievement that we all need, because we know that we have the tools and sometimes we don't know how to reach people. So
Good
that's super valuable for us and whatever we do. All right. So sometimes I feel like I'm tired, like, oh my God, I would love to support and help these people, but how can you? Right. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a team behind you.
Thank you. So, you know what? I think we're all here. We have our gifts and we're supposed to share them. We're supposed to shine our light and help others do the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Maureen, for inviting us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you, Regina, for challenging us.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, I've not done a show quite like this one in the past. It's usually more generic, not specifically addressed to the people in the room and how they would collaborate as much as how we collaborate in the world. But this group just seemed perfect to go down that road, because
Yeah.
you have, I mean, there's such synergy here in terms of what you do and who you serve. And it would just be a shame for the world not to have that collaboration.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
am looking forward to hearing how it goes and what comes of this.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Exciting.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, especially when we can reach people all across, you know, they don't have to be right down the street from me or in my hometown.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what I found beneficial is
Yeah.
a lot of telecoaching, and that is effective too, because people got used to it from
From
when we
COVID.
went through COVID. Yeah.
It was one of the pluses of COVID. There
Now
were
they like to sit in their pajamas and talk to me. It's fine by me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate all of you coming on today. Maureen, thank you so much for being co-host and
Thanks,
bringing these
Thank
amazing
you.
people.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And we'll thank our viewers for joining us. And please leave your comments. We'd love to see those. And join us again on Collaboration Conversations. Bye for now.
Thank
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank